Hello everybody, this is the first video lecture on the second chapter, and this is the theory chapter. So many of these, if not most of the ideas that are presented in this chapter will appear later in other chapters as by way of explaining processes. So the way I like to think about theory is I like to think about it as the framework with which we data is situated into. So let me back up. A better example is if you think of those old children's puzzles, the cardboard puzzle frames, and they have those little indentions throughout it. I think of that as like the theory, and the different pieces are the data. So the whole purpose or the role of what theory does is it tries to explain the patterns of observation. So we're going to touch on the different kinds of theory. So we have basically five major theoretical perspectives through in this chapter. A couple of them, like I say, you'll hear repeatedly. But before we start talking about some of the specific theoretical perspectives, a couple important ideas within the field or within the area of developmental psychology is the first point here, the first theoretical issue. And these things, well, I don't think they appear on a quiz, but I do want to give you sort of the big picture. The first one is, are humans active or reactive in their environment? In other words, is people's development and change, is that a reaction to the natural environment, right? So that would be what we would call a mechanistic explanation. Or are humans these independent organisms that initiate their own developmental change? And that would be what we would call the organistic model. But also along the line, and that's what is illustrated in this picture, is the question of, is development and change through the life course, is this what we would call continuous, or is it discontinuous? Continuous is represented by this first image right here, right? And that is that humans that all change just you gradually, or it would be what we would call a qualitative change, that development and change through the life course are just qualities, as opposed to discontinuous, which suggests that there are these abstract, no, not abstract, but these concrete, abrupt changes sort of in development. So as if stages are a stair step. And to some degree, we do treat development as if it is these stages when we talk about. Matter of fact, our whole class is broken up into these stages. We're going to talk about infancy, then we're going to have a chapter, we're going to have a module on childhood, and we're going to have one on adulthood. But the reality is that development is not, well, at least my perspective is, development is not those sort of abrupt stages. I don't know if it was this chapter or another one, but it's the idea that these different stages of our life are socially constructed, and society decides. That's the sociology class, but society decides what is associated with each of these distinctive stages. Okay. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But basically, that's how all these theories are gonna work. Are gonna sort of test those two major theoretical issues. But this is the guts, right? This is the important stuff of this chapter. Is we're going to in this chapter, I'm going to talk about different perspectives on growth and change from a psychoanalytical perspective, so commonly associated with Freud and this guy named Erik Erikson. The underlying similarity of all of the psychoanalytical theories is right here, are unconscious motives, right? So all the psychoanalytic theories assume that something about us is below our conscious awareness. We'll talk more about that later in the next one. Learning theories are really focused on observations, are the changes and behaviors that a observer can see and can measure. So we'll talk about cognitive learning theory, Pavlov, if you're familiar with Pavlov and the slobbering dogs back from psychology, Watson and Skinner. Cognitive psychologists, now I often say these guys are kind of more abstract, kind of over your head kind of things. So cognitive is a really important term. Hopefully you remember that from your psychology class too. Cognitive refers to thinking, right, and mental processes. So these researchers, or this perspective, focuses on how our thinking, how our mental processes change and grow over the course of our lifetime. The next group of theories are the contextual. I have this number four, the 4 and 5 type of theories here. I have sort of a fondness in my heart because they're more socially grounded. They're more societal grounded, and because of my sociological background. But the contextual theories take into consideration the role of the larger social environment and how environmental and social and societal forces predict, influence, affect how a person changes and grows. And then the evolutionary or the sociobiologist, this is a little bit more biologically focused, but these theoretical perspectives emphasize the role of biological adaptation and how that has influenced, or how that predicts, development and change. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and in the next video I want to talk specifically about a group of theories known as the psychoanalytical.